let's start drawing a cow. Okay, I first, as I always do, I first just scribble a brief and totally not precise outline of what I see. It has not to be precise, it doesn't have to be anything really. It's just to put some charcoal on the paper, nothing more. Then I start measuring the proportion, the height, the white against height. We measure the height here under the horn. It's kind of the face of this cow, and it's, you see, it's the same. The weight and the height are the same. The weight and the height measure from the base of the chin, as we can see, of the cow, and under the horn is the same. So if you see, I made it a little disproportionate, which is normal, it's not a big deal. And I start just very, very briefly correcting. You see here, there's a line. We see where this is just to make you understand. This is the square in which we can inscribe this cow. I draw it just to make it a little more clear, but not so important. And so here we start adjusting the basic proportions of this drawing. You see, I'm not for photorealism, I am for realism. So it's not so important to be precise at every millimeters, but we have to be precise enough. Here we go. And then we go down. Here, the horns. Here. You see, I made an error. The horn here start from the extreme right of our imaginary square. So I made it totally, I put them in the wrong place. So we start here. You see, it's not the grid, the terrible, it's just basic measuring. I can do that also from life. There's a technique to do it from life, which is kind of easy once you know how to do. We do it from photograph because to show you it's much easier to show you how it's done. And so you see, we measure where does this line falls here. It's a brief, you see, our head, the head of our cow is bigger than the head of this cow, but it doesn't matter. It's all proportional. We measure in proportion. We evaluate proportions. You see, this hand a little down there, and so here's the nose, and we can. You see, it's a progressive approximation, is a discovery. While we draw, we discover the form of our cow. But if we didn't sketch that scribbling in the beginning, we didn't have anything to correct. We didn't have anything to work, and it would be just we could start just measuring point after point, but it's not freehand drawing, and it's stiff and lifeless. We want something to be lifeless. You see, we measure the proportions here, where this point is in proportion to the white of the head, and it stands about here. And then we outline this. You see this, the skin under the chin, as we can see, as we can say, the chin of the cow. Here, the horn, the other horn. I like this cow. I like she's kind of watching something. She spotted something, and she has a kind of attentive look in her face. See, this is an important part. Is the head on the other side with the eye. We sketched the ear, which is, I made it a little too big. It will need some correction, but you see, it's a progressive discovering. See, I see the alignment of the two ears, and this ear is a little lower than the other. Appears, because of perspective and of the position of the head, a little lower. And I see, and then you see, I see proportionally where this ear is. This other part of the head will be, it's not convincing. I think it will need a little more correction, but we'll see later. And then this is, you see, I see the total height of the head, and I see proportionally where the ears stay in the height, at which point of the total height of the head this ear stands. And so we go here, we correct a little. This first part is really important. Spend the right amount of time here. Don't skip this phase. Don't skip this moment. It's the least amusing part. I know it, but you spend a little more time here, you will spend much less time correcting later on. So it's an investment on the success, the future success of your drawing. And we draw here. This ear as a by the perspective as a weird form. We have to render it, and we have to render the fact that it is not wrong. It's just perspective that gives this form. We correct a little the nose. We go down here, this line, and then I sketch here a little better this white part, just to make it. The more line you sketch, the more is clear the correction you have to make. So it gives me more room to understand the form. Because if you draw more line, there are more things that don't fall in the right place if there's something wrong, and so it gives you more room to correct. Okay, here's the nose. Here. And go down. You see? The correct placement of ears and eyes is really important. In humans, of course, it's incredibly important, but also in animals, because they don't have eyes in the same place as we have. Herbivores tend to have eyes more wide apart. We have eyes like predators, mostly like predators. Predators tend to have eyes on the front side of the head just to spot the victim, the prey, to hunt, whilst the herbivores tends to have their wide apart, just to have a more widespread view of all the environment in order to spot predators. And it's weird, and we tend to make the eyes of this kind of animal more human, and we tend to make them nearer, and it's an error. There's something that doesn't convince me. There is something wrong here. The placement of this eye made me spot something that is wrong. You see, this distance, the distance between this eye and the other part, is not correct. But why? You see? There's something wrong. Perhaps you see, it's on the right distance from the right side of the head, but it's not in the right position in rapport to the other side. So there's something wrong. What's wrong? Let's see it. You see, there's something that doesn't feel good. There's something wrong. I think about it. What's wrong now? What's wrong in this outline here? What does feel wrong for you? Here we go. This one is wrong. I made it too wide. This one is not the placement of this eye, is the distance of the other part of the head, of the distance, as we say, of the far side of the head, the head that is farther from us. That's the error. You see, it starts to be a little more correct, and I distract myself. I draw other lines. I play with lines that come easy to me. You start to feel more correct. You see? This inclination of the nose. This one. I draw some line just to understand the form. We measure here, here. Always double check all your lines, all your proportions. This is the problem. Here we go. You see, from the distance between the far part of the head, the other eye, and the nose, is 1/4 of the total height of this head. You see, in our model, it's a really important proportion. I made it 2, 3, 4. I made it really too far on the left, and so I have to correct it. You see, I also control the height, the other lines, but it is here. It's much, yeah, it starts to feel good. It starts to feel right. You see, that was the error. Correcting this error, everything starts to look more natural, more correct. You see, I don't edit my errors because everyone does mistakes when drawing, and spotting and correcting your errors is really important. It's a progressive study and approximation of your subject. It's totally useless to make you see a drawing that is good from the start, editing all the correction. It's not how a drawing is made. There's always something to correct. This distance, 1, 2, 3, you see? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, yeah, we're kind of right. Now it's here. This correction, because of this imprecision, everything was out of place. Now that we corrected, the feature of this cow the features fall into the right place. You see? And she has this kind of intended look. It's a concentrated cow. She's spotting something. Then I start to be satisfied of this outline. Of course, there's always room for improvement. And now you see we corrected that part, and we have to correct the other part that depends on the position of the lines we corrected. So we have to adjust almost everything thanks to our correction. Now it starts to have the right form. You see, it's more natural. The eyes appear to be placed in the right place, and so we can wipe. We can delete the construction lines. We don't need it anymore. You see, we made just few measurements that can be made also on a live model. It's with just some correction. It's almost the same technique. And now I start. There's the more we can say the more amusing part. I start sketching, outlining the shadow. I outline the gross shadow, the gross difference between dark and light. I'm not interested in details in this moment. Just I lightly squeeze my eyes just to see the big picture, just to see the big darks and the big lights, the big difference between the dark and the lighter part. It's not the moment to add details. Also because while you draw, you always spot other things to correct. And if you just added the detail and you went on full dark, it's much more difficult to correct it. So we start with more light shadows, just the big picture, and we progressively go on darker darks. Now we made it a little faster, so you can see more easily the building of this shadow. Here we go. We go faster, so you can see more easily how this first layer of shadow is put. You see. Now I trace this cast shadow. I'm a little perplexed. The great Kimon Nicolaides said, wipe out, delete the shadows that don't aid in describing the form. This shadow could be a little obstacle in describing correctly the form. I don't know if I will leave it or not. I can use a little curve in this shadow to describe, to use it as a contour drawing to describe a little more the curvature of the cheek. So I think I will leave it, but we will see. I have no problem in deleting it if it doesn't help, but I find it kind of add a little more dramatic aspect. And then we go on the horns. There's a shadow here, a little shadow here, just that, just little details, but really few details. Here we go, and see, start to appear. I want it's more like here, I think. See, yeah, I think I will leave it. It makes a little more interesting, the drawing, and it can help me to describe the form. Then we have the neck. It's kind of a portrait of a cow, and now I add the white, the highlights, and the white fur. Many teachers tell to do this at the end, to do this at the very end of your drawing. It's good, it's right, it's correct, but I really like to put it a little in advance, because it gives me more the impression of the drawing I'm doing. You see, it gives a more finished look, and so it's more gratifying. It's a kind of instant gratification. It gives me more the impression of what will become the drawing when it will end, and it also helps me to spot the errors. It helps me to see more clearly the forms. I just do it because I like it, and so and I find it helpful. Of course, the rule when drawing with charcoal and white: never mix the two. Be very careful not to cross the line, because if you go with a white in the dark area, it will become a gray, a muddy gray color that will really spoil your drawing. And now this outline ears in the nose, I like it. And we go to the darker darks. Now it's time to switch gears. Now I put the really dark ones to have the impression of the finished drawing. Now I go for the darker darks, and then I will work from the darker darks to the light. It's a layered approach. I start with line drawing, naturally. Then I go to a sort of ghost of our drawing. You know, the first layer of darks and light. Then I really switch gears and put the darker darks. And it's what I'm doing here. And then I will go to the middle tone. The middle tone are the last things I do. It's the more delicate part, it's the less evident, and it's linked to the transition between dark and light. So I'm really here. I switch from white to black, which is not an orthodox way to work, but I find it helpful, and I really find it more interesting. We have to draw, we have to feel pleasure when we draw. It must be pleasant, because our feelings transmits to the paper. When you get bored while drawing, your drawing will be boring. So you have to find ways to be engaged in your drawing, to be interested in what you draw. And then here we go. And then I go here to this shadow. Yeah, I like it. It needs some correction. It's not in its definitive form, but I think I will leave it here. I think I will leave it. Now I'm going on 4 times the video is 4 times the faster than my drawing, because it will be much longer. And I find that while showing the drawing process, this fast forward makes more evident the building of the shadows. It's a good deductive method. I go here, I go dark in the eye, and here you see this other part which is dark. The light comes from above. It's clearly from above the cow. I always recommend my students to choose wisely their reference, to light wisely their models if they work from a live model, and to choose wisely their reference if they work from photo reference. Not any photograph is good as reference for a drawing. The modern kind of photography, it's the worst kind of photography to use as photo reference, because it tends to eliminate all the shadows and to give a very flat impression of the feature you're drawing, of the faces of the people and animals you're drawing. You need to look for photographs where the light is really clear, from where you can really understand from where the light comes. It's really, really important. And now I use this. I don't want to spoil the charcoal that I put on the paper, so I use this other paper sheet just to put it under my hand. And then we go here. This horn must be very dark, and this other horn, light comes from above, so the bottom part of the horns is of course very dark. Here we go, a little more darker. We go to the neck. When I draw a portrait, we can call this a portrait of a cow, I don't put many details on the neck, because I want the observer to focus on the head, on the face of a subject. Never put too many particulars in the part you don't want them to focus. You delineate more the parts that you want, where you want to bring the eyes of the observer. And now we mix very attentively. We do not have to cross the lines. We mix white with black to give the impression of the fur there. See, this part is good. A little white here. We're heading to the end of the drawing. It's where to stop, when to stop. It's always a tough question. You have to finish your drawing, but you don't have to overwork it. And it's a question of, it's kind of a tough question. So I like the shadow. I'm not sure. Maybe it will be better deleting it, but I will leave it there. I find it interesting, and I don't find that it spoils the impression of tridimensionality of this head. So we go more on the details. Now we put the sharper lines and the last white, and then we go on. We went on full black, and now we go on full white. We put and the middle tone. You see, I switch. I adjust the darks, then the lights, then the middle tones, and we can say we're finished. Hi, I'm Marco Barucco. Did you enjoy the video? Remember to subscribe to the channel in order not to lose any video at all. Bye.